him as a hero. Now there are concerns Snowden may defect to China. 35 years ago, Chris Boyce found himself backed into a similar corner. Boyce was also a government contractor with access to state secrets. In 1977, when he was just 22 years old, Boyce was arrested, then convicted of espionage for selling classified information to the Soviet Union. Hollywood told his story, you may have seen it, in the 1985 Sean Penn movie called The Falcon and The Snowman. Boyce spoke with CNN in 1985.
Someday I might be let out of these prisons, but it is so far in the future that it's really painful, even for me to think about all that time passing, you know, because what other than your own life is more precious to a person, you know, and I've forfeited the great bulk of mine.
Okay, so Chris Boyce, he's now out of prison. He's working on a new book coming out this summer called The Falcon and The Snowman, American Sons. In his first TV interview in almost 30 years, Chris Boyce joins us now by phone from his home on the West Coast. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning.
The news about Edward Snowden, I know you've been in a very similar situation. What do you think he's feeling right now?
I assume he's feeling a whole lot of fear, a gnawing fear, tension, stress. I read the other day that he had disappeared out of his hotel, but he certainly hasn't disappeared from the Chinese police. They'll be watching his every move. If I was him, I wouldn't trust the Chinese, and I would not be surprised if at some point they didn't extradite him back to the United States, sell him in effect for some political concession. And when and if that happens, his life, if he thinks it's stressful now, it will just go further and further down the drain.
So what do you think? What lengths is Snowden going to right now to stay out of sight?
I probably think that all of his movements and activity are controlled now by the Chinese government. He can no more hide in China, I think, than my wife's French poodle. And I don't really think he can go into fugitive, complete fugitive status in China like I did hide. The government there will have complete control over him.
So I want to know this. I followed your story. What drove you to share state secrets with the Soviet Union? And if you could do it all over again, would you have done it? Would you do it again?
No, I would not. I grew up in a different time than Snowden. I grew up with a huge love of the American Republic, where it was a country at one point that, sent its armies out to free other people. But in my youth, as I started to grow up, I watched the Vietnam War and the assassinations and Nixon's impeachment and the race riots, and it just always assumed to me that the federal government was becoming worse and worse. And, of course, that my perspective was flawed, but I don't know. I think that Snowden is motivated to protect the interests of the American people. I know that there might be some narcissism and egoism involved in it, but I think that he is primarily motivated to show everyone all the crawly things under the intelligence community's rocks. And I think that it's in the interest of the American people that he has done that.
So do you support Snowden and what he's doing?
Yes, I think that what he did was correct. And but I realize that they're going to indict him. The federal government will have task force to get him. Eventually, I believe they will get their hands on him, and the Justice Department will arrange to have him convicted and sentenced to life in prison, and then he'll be turned over to the U.S. Bureau of Prisons, and they will maintain that other prisoners will kill him, so they'll put him in solitary confinement. And that could go on for 10 years, and he will just sit there, and his mind will turn to mush. And after about, he'll tough it out for a year or two, and after that, he will utterly regret that he ever did this to himself.
So what do you think about The Falcon and the Snowman, the movie based on your life? Is it an accurate portrayal of what you and Dalton Lee went through?
Yes, and it was very surreal, actually, to be brought out of solitary confinement myself and to sit down with the actors that portrayed me and watch the film in a room with federal bureaucrats and wardens and officers of the government, and as each scene unfolded in the film in front of us, to feel the fury and anger of the bureaucrats around us watching it, sitting there with us. And
so was there a satisfaction then that you felt in watching that?
Yes, but it was also very strange. Everything about my life then had become strange. I hadn't seen the sun in years, but it was as bizarre and surreal a moment in my life as I ever could have imagined, and I would still be sitting in that, in jail, in solitary, in prison, were it not for the legal wizardry of my wife. But that's another story.
All right, Chris Boyce, thanks for your time.
All right, good day.
I think that's fascinating, because there are few people in the world who really can understand the reasons and the response and the reaction to what Edward Snowden has done.
Well, it's interesting to hear that he supports him, knowing everything that Chris Boyce went through in his life, that he still supports this guy.
And he says that in some time he will realize that he is going to regret what he's done because of the way it's changed his life. And his mind will turn to mush, as he said. Until,
of course, he comes out and writes a book like Chris Boyce is doing.
Very few people could have given that perspective, and I'm glad we got that on this
Very
morning.
Interesting. Yeah, you saw the movie, yeah?
Yeah.
Good movie. Great movie. Interesting to talk to the guy behind it.